Hi, welcome to Minnesota Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Jennifer Zielinski, and thank you for joining us and watching us however you do watch us, whether it's on cable access or any of our social media platforms. With us tonight, we do have National Committee woman Barb Sutter for the RNC, and we also have Christine Bolin, our Vice Chair for Minnesota's 3rd Congressional District. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're getting into kind of the nuts and bolts of party building, party planning. Maybe not the most exciting thing as we're moving from our candidates, but this is important, correct?
Yeah.
I would say so. Yeah.
As we're gearing up for that 2024 election,
Right.
we need to make sure we're reaching out to every voter possible.
Yes.
Barb, tell us about yourself.
Well, I started life in politics in Minnesota as a treasurer for my Senate district. Then I became the Senate district chair. For 4 years, I was the Minnesota Party secretary. And then in 2020, I ran for and won my election to be the National Committee woman to the RNC for the state of Minnesota. There's a man and a woman and the state party chair as well. So we represent this state at the RNC.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's how I got where I am.
Quite a background, too, in politics.
Yeah. It's been a great learning curve, I will say, and I wouldn't trade any of it. I actually even ran for office once and was on Roundtable back in 2014.
His history, friend of the show.
Yes, yep.
Christine, tell us about yourself.
Well, I got my start in politics in 6th grade when I ran as the Republican candidate in our mock election for President of the United States. I lost.
Sorry.
But I've come a long way from there. So now I am one of the vice chairs of Congressional District 3, as well as Senate District 35. I'm a vice chair and treasurer of the Minnesota Log Cabin Republicans.
A lot of involvement.
Yep.
And you were also a campaign manager for a candidate.
Yes, I did manage a House campaign last cycle, and it was one of the closest races in the state. So
Yeah, it was.
So both of you have been on the ground with voters, with the candidates working to move that dial towards the Republican majority.
yes.
So, Barb, we're getting into affiliates. Tell us about your role, and then we'll get into affiliates as well.
When I was serving as secretary, I became the state director, big title, but of our affiliates. And if you're not familiar with what affiliates are, as I would think our viewers wouldn't be, they are composed of, whether it's a minority group, whether it's a women's group, we have, and I do apologize, I have some notes, but I don't want to leave anyone out. We have actually 12 groups in the state of Minnesota.
Wow.
We have our women, our Asian American group, we have our seniors, our young Republicans, our college Republicans, we have African Republicans, we have our Liberty Caucus, veterans, a labor group, and finally we have a Native American group, so Native Indians. So, and each one of those groups, I guess what I want to say when people hear that as Republicans we have these groups, the first question I get is, why are we doing this? We don't believe as Republicans in identity politics. Well, we don't believe in identity politics basically, but I have found that it's a way for those people that don't immediately think, gee, I think I'll go to my local political group and maybe don't want to walk in alone. They can make their start by getting involved in a group of their friends. The best example I can give is our Asian American community. They started out a small group, more and more heard about it. They got involved. They were very interested in school issues. And they found, as an affiliate group, they had access to legislators. And that they could make a huge difference. So they grew into that, became more active. And while they didn't necessarily leave as members of their affiliate group, they went from there and branched out and became active in their Senate districts, which is the ultimate goal.
Yes.
But so it was a comfort zone for them, but they went on to become active in their Senate districts, raised a lot of money for candidates in 16 and in 20, and some of them became candidates themselves. So I consider an affiliate program can be a real success.
A bonus.
Yeah.
And especially since in Minnesota we have a very grassroots Republican Party.
Yes.
Where you have maybe members of the general public,
Right.
our viewers, not always knowing how to get involved, but this is a way to get involved.
Yes.
Christine, you got involved this way as an affiliate or any
Yes.
affiliates.
It's kind of an interesting way that I got involved through the Log Cabin Republicans. I've always been an advocate for the LGBT community, and I felt alone. So I figured there must be other Republicans that think the way I do. So I sought out a group, and I found the Minnesota Log Cabins. And through my involvement with them, I actually learned a lot more about how our state party operates. And I had no idea how to get involved prior to joining Log Cabin. So I learned a lot. I ran for my leadership in my Senate district and then went on to run for a position in my congressional district. So I really give credit to that affiliate group for getting this straight suburban mom off the bench and
Yeah.
getting involved in the party.
And
Yeah.
as I'm bringing up tonight, we have to step up. We can't sit back. We can't
Exactly.
sit for 2024. And that's the perfect way is just to get out there, meet
Right.
people like-minded, and
Right.
build that conservative base.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
affiliates, they've done a lot for the party, and not only just in Minnesota, but
Correct.
other states. Barb, you have information about that? Or?
Well, we have the RNC, the Republican National Committee, basically has their affiliates, but they call them their coalitions. It's the same thing, so the words are interchangeable. And they realized that they needed to do more outreach. They needed to grow the party. And they made it a priority. And under President Trump, many may remember, he was going into Democrat cities, for example, that were really having problems. And he made that one speech that made a lot of news where he said, "Why don't you give us a try? What have you got to lose? You've been years living in these conditions." And so he really pushed it. And so it began under him. There were significant electoral gains in 16 as a result that continued on into 20 despite him losing. And so from that, Republicans learned we had to broaden our base, and the RNC realized when he hadn't won, they needed to really step up the programs after his departure, and they have. And the contacts have to be made ongoing, lasting, and they have to be meaningful. So they have really worked on that, and I can give you some more examples as we go on. But yeah, it's been a really significant. The percentages, and I think I have those with me, which are really interesting. But I'll let you go on, and I'll get to that when I talk about the community centers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just want to get into one thing. I think sometimes we have our Republican base who've been part of the party forever. They've always voted Republican.
Right.
They bring up the fact, are we going towards identity politics like the Democrats? And are we pandering and losing our conservative values? Christine, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as Republicans, we are very passionately free thinkers.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
with that said, we all have different issues that are meaningful to us in different ways. And that doesn't stop with minority communities and different demographics. The way our state politics affect us and our families are different for different people. And it's not so much identity politics as a way of getting everyone involved and being able to have their voices heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a way for people to connect with the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
Or even like-minded voters, if they don't, agree
Exactly.
with everything in our platform, we can at least bring them into the party.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have these community centers. They're growing, I believe, here, California.
There are now close to, I think there are at least 50 across the country. I alluded to them, and they set them up in key states, in the target states. And so what they are doing on a national level, and again, just to let you know what groups they're targeting: Hispanic, Asians, Pacific, Black, Native American, Jewish, veterans, women, and faith groups. And what they've established are community centers. They are permanent centers.
Okay.
They're not just here at election time. And I think that's actually the beauty of it, because when we go into minority neighborhoods, for example, at election time, it just always seems to me that what we're doing is pandering. We're here now because we'd like your vote in November. So these are year-round centers. They're really making this commitment to the community. And of course, they're there for Republican outreach, but that isn't their sole point, and that's certainly not something they'd be working on 365 days a year. They have training, they have meetings, they give English lessons, citizenship lessons. It's a place for moms to come and meet one another. They have reading circles for the kids. I've seen videos of where they have dance classes in some of these, and these activities, they've really found establish long-term relationships. And the way it's structured is there will be one RNC employee in that community center, and the rest of the people are volunteers. And so that makes also the people in the community centers far more relatable to their communities. And they've been incredibly successful. And quite frankly, there are now measurable statistics that the RNC has kept in areas where these community centers are. They have moved the needle by several percentage points. And some of the thing that's really come out and that's the statistics that I have, 2016, 2018, 2020, the numbers really went higher for the Hispanics and the Asians. For example, this last election, Hispanics improved another 10%. I mean, those are
Wow.
big percentages.
Those are.
7 for the Asians. The blacks had done 11% 2 years earlier, added another 4%. So, I mean, those are big numbers and can make difference in races. In Florida, for the first time, the Hispanic vote has won Republican, helped the state become Republican, I should say. And then finally, we have a number of, I can remember reading 8 different legislators that were actually proud to come forward and say, I won my race, and I give a lot of credit to winning my race for these community centers. So they're really proving to be successful, and I think it's the way to go. Of course, they cost money. That's always
Always the downside,
Yes,
something we have to
yes.
think about as
Yeah.
we're building this. But it sounds like it's giving a chance for Republicans, maybe candidates or representatives who have been elected, to get back involved in
Yep.
these communities. Instead of just talking the talk, they're getting out there.
Yes, yeah.
And with these community centers, I mean, we can build them up, but you talked about volunteers. Is service a thing that's needed from anyone who wants to essentially see a Republican majority come back?
Yes, yeah, that's actually key is getting and keeping volunteers. It's difficult in Minnesota because we don't have a good record, but it's one of the reasons why a lot of us think we've got to keep doing this, because it's not always about, you might not win all the offices across the state. But just as an example, in Congressional District 5, which is our Minneapolis area, if the minority groups or the other affiliate groups can help us move the needle, it could be enough of a percentage drive that would help a statewide candidate up their numbers.
Absolutely.
So it's really, I believe it's really critical.
Absolutely, and I think we talk about where in Congressional District 5, which is Minneapolis and the first-ring suburbs, if we could even see 30%, so we might not see a win in that
Exactly.
district, but 30% would mean a win for
Right,
state
right.
candidates.
Yep.
Christine, did the affiliates have an effect in that campaign you were on managing?
Yes, and much beyond that campaign. We were involved in many campaigns across the state, including, we worked extensively with Scott Jensen's campaign, including doing a large-scale print advertisement. Dr. Jensen was actually the first gubernatorial candidate to ever approach our organization and request a meeting, and that was huge. That also led to our involvement in, a lot of the other statewide races, as well as the trickle down of, each of our local, Senate races and House races. So we did a lot of door knocking and participated in different kinds of advertising in a lot of different ways. So I think it's very important to involve everybody.
Absolutely. And it's another source for volunteers. I know we're not saying if
Exactly.
you become part of the affiliates, you have to volunteer,
Right.
but getting out there, getting the vote, and having extra people just to walk in a parade or door knock
Right.
can help that candidate big time.
Yeah.
And it's not always something we want to get involved with, but definitely have to.
Well, I know with the Log Cabin Republicans, we're not begging for volunteers. Everybody does it enthusiastically because we do have a great group of people and we all really enjoy working together and we make our events really fun. So it's just a different way to get people involved without feeling like work.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. They're out tonight, as I recall. They're out tonight having an activity, but we're here with you.
We're doing the boring
Yeah,
thing, talking
yeah.
party politics.
Oh, I hope it's not boring. Yeah.
But yeah, they have great events, and not only them, a couple of our congressional districts and Senate districts have had those party events where it's meeting other people in your neighborhood who
Right.
share similar values.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's just a great way to get people in.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's true. We were trying very hard, by the way, to get I think you know this, we were trying to get a congressional candidate on this evening that would have obviously Zoomed in, or we would have figured out the technical wizardry required. It's a difficult night because it's a Wednesday night and they're in session. But I did want to share that Michelle Steele, who is a representative in a very tricky area, Orange County, California. Her husband, who works her campaign, sent some notes. And I think this is really, if somebody thinks that the community centers or working with affiliates can't help, I'm not going to read a long story here, but she won her reelection in a district in which Joe Biden carried the district by 7 points. The Democrats in her area have a 5% registration advantage. But on election day, she flipped her district and won by an absolutely commanding margin. So the question is, how did she do it? Well, of course, she worked very hard, there's no question. But there's a lesson here. She believes, her husband believes, that can work for other purple districts in the country. She campaigned, just as an example, she is Korean. She campaigned in 6 languages. Doesn't mean she's fluent in all of them, but she had surrogates that went with her. And she sent out many mail pieces, but they were all translated in the crucial languages in Orange County. And then there were lots of voter contacts and phone calls as well. But she says she thanks the support of the RNC and the California GOP, because what they did in her district is they invested in an area called Little Saigon. They put a community center there. That helped build her presence and connected her with the voters. And what was unusual there is that it served as a gathering point for all the local candidates, the school board candidates, the city council candidates. So Republicans were there that were working on school issues. And what that did, you triggered this for me when you said it expands our volunteers. So all of these people were coming in and out, looking for help. The volunteers got to know other volunteers, brought more. And ultimately what it did was boost that Republican turnout to those stats you heard at the beginning, where she had an overwhelming victory. And again, I think I said there were about 8 representatives that shared that story, a similar story, that really attribute a lot to the community center. So again, I would say we've got some proof, given the statistics and their own stories, that they can be very beneficial. We'd love to do and create something like that in Minnesota.
I was just about to ask, are we seeing this starting in Minnesota yet, or is it still in the planning stage?
We actually did start a community center last fall.
Okay.
We were very excited, but as I alluded to earlier, starting it right before the election is not as advantageous. So the center did close after the election, but we're absolutely working on putting one in the cities. So yeah.
That's great. And I've said this before, but we can't think about the elections even January 2024.
No,
we need
no.
to get working early
Yeah.
if we want to see those wins, not only in
Right.
local areas, but Minnesota,
Right.
the
Yep.
country.
Yep.
Well, even our party, it's well known that we have a problem with optics. And
Yes.
the core, at the core, conservative values transcend skin color and sexual orientation and religion. And as a party, we have to show what we have to offer.
Right.
So I think that between the affiliates and the community centers and these different coalitions, it's a good place for us to showcase
Yes.
what we're actually trying to do and how we're helping families in Minnesota and across the country and, bring people in and put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
Exactly. What can viewers do? They're sitting at home or maybe at work watching us. They want to get involved. What would you say to any viewers who were looking to get involved?
Well, as I said, we have 12 affiliate groups, and if any of them sound remotely interesting to you, and they are, there, as Christine indicated, there are also a lot of fun activities that go on. But if you are interested in learning more or getting involved, if you'd go to mngop.org, at the top you click on the About tab, and that takes you to the affiliates. And for each affiliate, they give you a phone number, an email. If you're interested, for example, in the Log Cabin Republicans, you can reach out to Christine. If you're interested in any of them and you don't necessarily have a name, you can always say, hey, I saw Barb Sutter, would love to know more about this. And nobody's going to come bother you or chase you down, but that's probably the easiest way to get information. And we'd love it if you're interested, if you would.
And Christine, do you have to maybe identify with that community to be part of that affiliate?
Absolutely not. I mean, I am not a part of that community, just a supporter of the community, but again, just like-minded people and me wanting to support my friends has brought all of this together, and I remain very involved in the group after, I believe, 5 years now, and, any group that anyone might be interested in for whatever reasons, whatever their connection is to each of these communities, the whole list is there, and people can feel free to reach out to whichever one they choose.
Yeah.
And now if they're not interested in an affiliate, can they still get involved in party politics via their local party unit?
Would be actually the same thing. Excuse me, it would be mngop.org. I believe there is a tab, in fact, I know there's a tab that says volunteer. So again, see if you can get in there and leave a message, and somebody will get back to you.
And I know I'd have the expert on the MNGOP website.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure, but
I was going to say you've definitely worked with it way more than I have, but sometimes not everyone knows their local party unit,
right.
but the MNGOP can direct them to that.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. Very easy. But yeah.
Any last thoughts before we close here?
I would just say that we really do have to make an effort, as the RNC did, as I indicated. We really need to think about practicing more outreach. I know we've all heard the expression big tent. It's what Ronald Reagan used to talk about. And I would urge all of us to, reach out to the people that you know, and let's provide an outlet for these folks to come and be a part of our group. Let's even let's encourage them. They can make a difference. Yeah.
Christine, any last comments?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of reasons that people should come and learn more about the GOP. there are a lot of issues that people don't realize that voting for Democrats how much it has affected their families, from inflation to school issues, those sorts of things. So I think it's worth having a conversation at the very least.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you too for being on this show. It's been a great discussion.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us on Minnesota Republican Roundtable. And if you would like to know more about the Minnesota Republican Party or our affiliates, look at minnesotamngop.org. Thank you.